Hello everybody, today we're going to be reviewing rational functions. So my name is Ms. Cartelli and we're going to be talking about fractional equations. So we have wholes. Let's look at what a whole is. So a whole occurs when there is a common factor in the numerator and the denominator of a fraction. So this typically occurs when you're factoring and you cross off a common factor on the top and the bottom of the fraction. We also have x-intercepts. So x-intercepts occur when y equals 0 and the factors in the numerator, or you can use a table for this. We also have y-intercepts. So y-intercepts occur when x equals 0, or just plug in 0 for x. And we have vertical asymptotes. So vertical asymptotes are the x values of the factors of the denominator that don't cancel out. So why is this so? Because you can't have 0 on the denominator of a fraction because that makes the fraction undefined. So we call these vertical asymptotes. We also have horizontal asymptotes. So horizontal asymptotes is the y value of the graph approaches as x approaches infinity. All right, so there's your review of how we graph rational functions, all the necessary elements. And now we're going to move on to an example. So we have g of x equals x plus 1 times x minus 3 divided by x plus 1 times x minus 4. So we need to find just the elements that we already said in the previous slide. We need to find a whole, an x-intercept, y-intercept, vertical asymptote, and horizontal asymptote. So we're going to start with our whole. So a whole is when we look at our original factored form of our equation, and we're going to cross off our common factors on the top and the bottom. So on the top we have x plus 1, on the bottom we have x plus 1. We're going to cross them out. So our whole is, then we have to look at what we had. So if we're crossing out x plus 1, our whole is going to be negative 1 for our x term. So if we set those equal to 0, we would get x equals negative 1. Now we need to find our y term. How would we do that? Well, we're just going to take that x term and plug it into the original g of x equation. And when we do that, we're going to get 4/5. So our whole is going to occur in our graph at negative 1, 4/5. All right, we have our x-intercept and our y-intercept. Now something to remember that's extremely important is when we set these up, certain terms are going to be 0. So in our x-intercept, what we're going to do is we're going to set y equal to 0. In our y-intercept, x is going to be equal to 0. So if we go back to our original equation and we plug in 0 for y, well, what's going to happen is we're going to need the top of this equation to be equal to 0. So we're going to have x equals negative 1. Well, we already said that that's a whole. So that's not going to be our x-intercept, but x minus 3 equals 0. If we solve that, we're going to get negative 3. So that would make our x-intercept negative 3, 0. Our y-intercept is where we're going to do just the opposite of what we just did. So we just set y equal to 0. If we're looking for our x-intercept, x is equal to 0. So what you're going to do is in your original equation of g of x, you're going to set every x equal to 0, and you're going to see what you get. And what it's going to end up coming out to be is it's going to be 3/4. So your point will be 0, 3/4. Now we have vertical asymptotes. So we go back to our equation. Our vertical asymptotes are the numbers that make the bottom or our denominator of the fraction 0. So when we set this equal to 0, we get x equals negative 1. That's a whole, so we're going to skip it for the moment. But we have x minus 4 equals 0, so that would be x equals 4. So our vertical asymptote would be x equals 4. And lastly, we have our horizontal asymptote. So horizontal asymptotes, we need to look at the exponent of the top and the exponent of the bottom, the highest exponent. So if we actually factored out the top, or if we did we foiled out everything, we would have x squared is our leading term. On the bottom, if we did the same, we would have x squared as our leading term. So when this happens and you have the same power on the top and on the bottom, you take the coefficients of the front, so you have 1 divided by 1. So that makes our horizontal asymptote y equals 1. All right, so now we're going to look at what the graph of this function actually looks like. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all of the elements we just found and we're going to put them on a graph, and you should get something that looks like this. So we have our hole at -1. And somehow our 4 got erased, so I'm going to rewrite it. We have our hole at -1. We have our x-intercept, y-intercept, vertical asymptote, so straight up and down, and horizontal asymptote at y equals 1. All right. So moving on, we're going to look at another example. So you guys are going to try this one. You need to find the hole, the x-intercept, the y-intercept, the vertical asymptote, and the horizontal asymptote. So you're going to use the example that I just gave you, pause the video, and see if you can find these elements, and then graph the function. Okay, so we're going to come back and go over the example. So we need to find the holes of our function. So the holes of our function are going to be -2, comma, -4/3. Oh, +2, sorry, +2, comma, 4/3. So you would get these by crossing out the common terms, and that's what you would get. So our x-intercepts, you should have gotten 3, 0, and -2, 0. Next are y-intercepts. Check your answers and see if you got 0, comma, 3. Horizontal asymptotes, you should have gotten y equals 2, and vertical asymptotes, you should have gotten x equals 1 and x equals -4. All right. So example number 3, this is another example that you guys are going to try. So we have an equation, find the hole, y-intercept, x-intercept, vertical asymptotes, and horizontal asymptotes. Pause the video and give it a try. Okay, so we're going to go over the answers. For your holes, you should have gotten -3, comma, 2.5. Y-intercept, you should have gotten 0, -2. X-intercept, 2, 0. Y-intercept equals -1, x equals -1. And horizontal, y equals 1.